Welcome back. I'm joined by Championship correspondent Pascal Lemaire to preview Monday's playoff final at Wembley between Norwich and Middlesbrough. Pascal, we'll start with Norwich. Overcame their great rivals Ipswich in the last round. Do you think they enter this one as the favourites?
Yeah, I think they will enter it as favourites. I mean, Middlesbrough were probably more emphatic with their semi-final victory, but Norwich, they came into this playoffs. They were the top-ranked team, sitting third, Borough fourth. I think it's the first I saw a stat. It's the first time. It's only the third time since the playoffs began that in all three divisions, League One, League One, League Two, and the Championship, that the sort of top two seeds have made it to the final in all three divisions. So that's quite an interesting stat. And I think Norwich come into this, they do probably start as favourites for me. Not quite as emphatic in their semi-final win, but I think you just look at the quality that their squad have got. Obviously, they only came down from the Premier League a year ago, and they managed to keep the bulk of their players from last year. They lost Leroy Fer, a couple of others, but predominantly they kept a lot of their best players. And I think in the semi-final win over Ipswich, I think Ipswich did well in the first first three quarters of the tie. In the first game at Portman Road, it was a 1-1 draw. I think that was a fair result. And then in the first half at Carrow Road, Ipswich were well in that game against them. I'd say Ipswich probably edged the first half of Carrow Road, but then early in the second half, all went Norwich's way with the handball on the line. Christoph Ehrer gets himself sent off. Definitely the right decision. He clearly used his arm to block Redmond's shot, but that was one mistake from Ipswich. They gave the ball away there. Norwich took advantage, and from then on, once they go a goal up and a man up, you'd expect them to sort of run away with the game, but it didn't actually work out like that. Ipswich pulled a goal back, within 6 or 7 minutes. Tommy Smith got a goal from a set piece. You felt that Ipswich, they are pretty good at set pieces, and it wasn't that surprising to see that that's where their goal came from. But Norwich after that, they did well to not let Ipswich, because once Ipswich got the goal, you would have thought they would just put all their sort of 9 outfield players behind the ball and just tried to get it maybe to extra time and penalties and just try and ride it out like that. But Nathan Redmond, he was quite dangerous in both of those games. He scored that second goal, which really killed Ipswich off, I think, because it was so soon after they'd equalised, and I think Ipswich fans would have thought, because once they conceded the first goal and go a man down, you thought, right, that's tie over, but they got back so quickly. But then for Norwich to restore that lead like they did so quickly, that was very impressive. I think the keeper definitely could have done better with Redmond's shot, but it sneaks under him, and then they get the third goal shortly after. Cameron Jerome does well, sticks it away, and then that's tie over. And it's such a massive win for the club. It was probably the biggest derby between Norwich and Ipswich ever, given how much was at stake there. And they came through it well. You would have expected them to come through it because of just how much more quality they had than Ipswich, and they did do well there to come through that game. And I think certainly going into this game, they just about start as favourites, just because I think they've just got more quality in their squad, and I think they finished above Middlesbrough in the league, and I think they just about start as favourites, only slightly though.
As for Middlesbrough, last time out was drawn against Brentford in the semi-finals. Would have started as favourites for that game, and you did predict them to go through, but maybe they wouldn't have thought they would have been as comfortable as it was. 5-1 aggregate winners in the semis.
Yeah, I think the first leg was the big one in that tie, because you look at the Norwich-Ipswich tie, that was 1-1 after the first leg, very evenly poised, but for Middlesbrough to go and win at Brentford like they did, they were far from their best that Friday night, and they went there, they got that injury time goal from Amorebieta, and I don't think they deserved even a point out of that game. I thought Brentford were more threatening throughout that game, and they got that late goal through the deflection, and that just gave them a huge boost going into the home leg. And at home at the Riverside, they had the best record out of anyone in the league this season, and it wasn't that surprising to see them come through that game. I mean, 3-0 was a big scoreline. I think 5-1 overall is it's a harsh on Brentford. I think it's a tough way for them for their season to finish because of all the Mark Warburton stuff as well. They know they're going to lose their manager at the end of the season, but for Brentford, it was their first season back in the Championship after I think it was 21 years, and to get into 5th place, playoffs, but 5th place as well, finishing above 6th as well, it was a great season from them. But it was a decent win for Middlesbrough in that game. I think Patrick Bamford is sort of a big player for them coming into this. He won the Championship Player of the Year, but in the first leg at Griffin Park, he was far from his best. They said, he's struggling a bit with injury, and Aitor Karanka left him out for the second leg, and obviously they played well in that second leg to win 3-0. And it'd be interesting to see if he comes back into the team now, because he's sort of been starting ahead of the likes of Kike sort of in the last maybe 2 months or so, and you think, will he stay on the bench, or is he ready to start this game? And if he's available for them, that'd be a big boost to them, because he is a quality player, and you think that his sort of quality might just be able to make the difference to them. But I think Middlesbrough, they'll go into this game, they'll certainly, it's been, I think, 6 seasons now they've been in the Championship. They certainly want to, get back to the top flight. And I think that, when you come up against a team like Norwich here, you have to look at, it's such a big game, you have to look back at the sort of head-to-head record in the season. And Middlesbrough, really had the better of Norwich in both games. In the first half of the season, up at the Riverside, they won 4-0. Like I said, they have been excellent at home all season, but then they went to Carrow Road, I think it was about a month or two ago, and it was a massive game, and they were both chasing those automatic promotion places, and Middlesbrough went there and won 1-0. A really big result from them at the time, and I think Middlesbrough will start this game. I think Middlesbrough might think they're favourites for this game just because of the record they have against Norwich, and I think I look here, Norwich have won just one of their last 12 in all competitions against Middlesbrough, so the head-to-head record certainly favours Borough, but I think Norwich, I just think they've got more quality. I think Middlesbrough, it's really evenly poised, but I think Norwich is just about edging it.
I mean, do you think Norwich are favourites of the two squads? Which do you think is best equipped, or do you think it would need to do more in the summer if they did go up? Do you think Norwich maybe have the better squad overall for the Premier League? Or?
I think that just about just because they've only just recently come down from the Premier League, and some of their players have had really excellent seasons. You look at Bradley Johnson especially; he was a pretty solid player for them in the Premier League, and he's just been fantastic this year. 15 goals from midfield. No midfielder had more in the league this season. Look at some of the young players. They've got Nathan Redmond. He's a very exciting player. I think. He didn't look quite at home in the Premier League last year, but he's brilliant in the Championship. He'll certainly want to make the step up. They've got other players. I think Norwich, the Premier League quality. You look at the likes of John Ruddy in goal, especially. He's an excellent player. And I think when you look at Middlesbrough, some of their players are on loan. They had a couple of Chelsea loanees this season. They had Callas and Omaru at the back, and then there's Bamford obviously up front, who's been a massive player for them this season. They had got a few loanees, not as many. Norwich have got sort of a more settled squad, I think. And out of the two, I think Norwich are better equipped for the Premier League. But I think both have had good seasons, and I don't think both would look as out of place as, say, a Burnley have this year. You say, look at what Burnley did this year. They didn't really sign anyone in the summer, and even though they tried their hardest to stay in the league, they never looked like they had enough quality. But I think both of these would have enough quality to certainly at least compete in the league next year.
Decent as well for that part of the world. If Middlesbrough went up, maybe they have all the big cups up there, but they call it the most lucrative game in world football. It's obviously massive. It's the end of the conclusion of what has been a long, hard slog for both teams, isn't it? They call Championship is well known. A lot of people say it's one of the toughest leagues, and you play on Wednesday, Saturday, whatever Sunday, and it's such a big game at Wembley. Obviously, the fans, there's been that thing with the spelling Middlesbrough wrong on the tickets, which is quite interesting. I don't think the fans are too happy about that, but obviously, it's a massive game. That's said and done. It is. But what's your score prediction? Is it tough to call? Or?
Really tough to call. Both sides had a very good season. Like I said, I think Norwich start the game just as slight favourites to them. Middlesbrough, like I said, they've got the much better head-to-head record against Norwich this season. But I think I just think that Norwich might just have more bottle on the day. I think if you look at their records this season, Norwich they had as many away points as anyone in the league this season, whereas Borough, they had that excellent home form this season, so they were great at the Riverside, but not so good on the road. And I think going to Wembley in this game, I just think Norwich with that best away record, it just shows that they can pick up points, tough points on the road, tougher atmospheres. And I think going to Wembley there's so much pressure on the game. And I think Norwich just seem for me just to have a bit more. I just think they might have a bit more bottle on the day and just be able to handle the occasion a little bit better. And I think they'll just about edge it 2-1.
So one final question: if Norwich do go up, like you say, joining Bournemouth and Watford, of those three teams next season, which one do you think would do the best in the Premier League?
Hard to say, because Bournemouth, you say they had a fantastic season this term, and Eddie Howe's done a fantastic job. They played brilliant football, but a small club, aren't they? They've said they're not going to expand the stadium. It's going to stay at 11,700. It's a tough place for Premier League teams to go. They won't be used to going to such a small ground, and it's whether Bournemouth, will they be able to cope with it? But I think they'll have a good season. I think, say if Norwich go up as I expect, I think Watford out of the three might do the worst out of all of them. I just think that they did really well this term. They've got some players that were fantastic in the Championship. The likes of Deeney's a brilliant player, but I mean, there's talk about Jokanovic. They don't know if the manager's going to stay. He hasn't sort of completely sorted out his future yet. So interesting. But I think of the three, if Norwich do go up with Bournemouth and Watford, I think Watford would struggle the most. But I think Norwich, I think they should do all right next season, but it's all about the sort of players you sign, isn't it, really? Going up to the Premier League, you look sort of, Leicester, they really struggle, but, you look at the likes of Cambiasso, who've been fantastic for them, and then you look at Burnley, what they did. They didn't really sign anyone, and they never quite looked like getting out. So, interesting, but I think out of the three, maybe Watford would struggle the most.